kind of realized that like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I'm out. Like, I'm out. I can't. Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl, La Goddess. Welcome back to my corner where I inspire others to dream more, live more, and become more. All right, so we are back with yet another chit chat video. So first of all, I just want to say shout out to a couple of my subscribers and supporters and close people in my life who actually inspired me to record this video. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about why I left social work. I just graduated with my MSSW degree in May, y'all, and already I am out of there, no longer in the field of clinical social work. So this video essentially is going to be kind of giving you guys a little bit of insight on exactly where I am now from a career perspective, and I also want to just let you guys in on like just my journey when it comes to social work and like why I decided to like pivot. All right, so I have a couple of notes here in front of me on my notepad because I do not want to forget anything. So I felt like it was only right to kind of open up the video and talk to you guys first about my journey to social work. Like, how did I even become a social worker? All the way back to high school, I took a psychology course and it was my senior year, and I'll never forget my advisor, she put me in this advanced psychology course, and that's when I essentially kind of found out I had a love for two things. I had a love for the mental, like mental health and things like that, but I also had a love for working with people. And to be honest, even before like high school, growing up, I've always been a social butterfly. I've always had such a soft heart. Like I'm that little girl who's outside trying to feed the stray cat. That's always kind of been the person that I am. And so naturally, I think that I really do have a big heart, and I have a heart to always want to just serve other people in whatever capacity that might look like. Social work was almost like destined for me because of the type of person that I am. And so, you know, once I graduated high school and I knew that I liked psychology, at the time, that's the degree that seemed to make the most sense. So when I went for my undergrad program to get my bachelor's degree, I studied psychology because I'm like, okay, I like people, I like mental health. So went to Norfolk State, got my bachelor's degree in psychology, very quickly realized I don't really know this is what I want to do, because I felt like I was sort of limited. And to be honest, I never really had intentions on going back to get a master's degree. So my final year in my bachelor's program, I had my internship and I worked at a foster care agency. While I worked there, I was also an intern. So I was getting like my hours and I was working. It was like the perfect mix. If you have been in social work or if you've been in just as a student, it's nothing better than being able to get your hours at the same place that you work. So I graduated from Norfolk State in 2015 and I was still working at the foster care agency. And so then fast forward to 2016, I then went on to do work with the homeless population. So I worked as a homelessness prevention case manager, or excuse me, a homelessness prevention program associate, and I was working in DC. So that was like my first job where I truly felt like, oh my goodness, I'm so official. Like it felt very real for me. Even though like the foster care job, I did my little 1-2, but you know, I started out as an intern there. So it didn't always feel like a real job for me, if that makes sense. Like I learned a lot, don't get me wrong, but I still felt like I was being cradled to some extent because I was just an intern. And so once I started working officially as a program associate of a homelessness prevention program, I'm in my social work bag, I'm in my psych bag, you know, yada yada. So, you know, after I left that job, fast forward, I was doing some work in immigration, like, you know, with an attorney. I was doing that on and off. So I have definitely dipped and dabbed into different areas of social work in some way or another, whether it was immigration, foster care. So I didn't decide to go back for my master's degree until 2019, I believe it was. Actually 2018. Remember I told you guys that my first like, you know, official, I guess you could say, job in social work was the foster care agency. One of the things that I remember every time I would run into like different therapists or people who were licensed clinical social workers, you know, I was always the baby. I was like super young at the job. So like a lot of people would see me and be like, oh, what do you want to do like when you graduate? And so at the time I thought that I wanted to go get my master's in clinical psychology. And so as I was talking to different professionals, they're telling me like, don't go to school for clinical psychology. You should just go to school for social work and get your clinical license, and you can practice as an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker, and you can do things that a clinical psychologist can do, plus probably more. So I'm like, okay, like that kind of makes sense too. So to be honest, I felt like I was really going with the flow. Like I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I quickly learned that this psych degree is not gonna get me very far. Like the job jobs. The offerings were trash, to be completely honest. Like, you don't make a whole lot of money. And I'm thinking, okay, at the bachelor's level, like, this is higher than a high school education. Like, I should be bringing some coin in, but unfortunately that was not the case for me, right? So I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go back to school. So fast forward to August 2018, so about 3 years later at this point, I decided to go back to school to get my master's. And so once I did research on all of my master's programs. I compared the differences between a clinical social work degree and a clinical psychology degree, you know, because I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't just doing this because, oh, I've had people telling me to do it. I wanted to do it because it genuinely made sense for me to do it. Social work, after I did my research, I felt like social work was a very good advancement to my psychology degree, if that makes sense. And I still feel like psychology really helped set the foundation. I was very confident going into my social work program at the master's level because I felt like I already had that foundation. When I took a look at some of the courses that I would be taking, it just made sense. A lot of it was related to like mental health, crisis prevention, and just all these different things, right? So I'm like, okay, like I probably would be really good at social work. Like, why not? Started my journey toward getting my MSW degree. I started off getting my MSW at George Mason University. Then I took a little break and then I picked it back up again. And that's when I eventually came to University of Louisville, and this is where I graduated. So my journey was definitely not a straight line. Like, it definitely was more like zigzag. It's okay to feel like you don't know what your next step is going to be, because I can guarantee you 90% of the professionals that you run into did not know exactly what they wanted to do next. And so I think, you know, sometimes those uncertainties while we're going through it can make us feel a little bit insecure, because we wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choice? So like me, for example, even getting my psychology degree, I won't even say that I regret it. I do wish that I maybe could have minored in something else, but I don't regret getting my psychology degree because I feel like it was meant for me to get the degree. The way that things happen is like how they're supposed to happen, and there's always a lesson behind it. And everybody's life and everybody's cards are gonna lay different. So I'm doing my MSSW at U of L. Everything is feeling good. I'm feeling confident. You know, I'm still very passionate to like work with people. I'm still passionate to talk to people. And if y'all know, clearly this is why I have a YouTube channel. I love to talk. One of the most popular positions that you can hold at the master's level, once you get your master's degree, especially if you get your clinical license, one of the most popular and probably the most popular title that you can have is to be a licensed clinical social worker, and you can work as a therapist. If you get that clinical license, that literally unlocks so many different doors. One of the things that I noticed as an MSSW student is that most degree programs, they train you to really be a clinical social worker and work as a therapist. I genuinely feel like we are really only trained in like the clinical areas, or to work as therapists, emotional support, and things like that. And so at the time, to be honest, I never really knew that there were things that you could do outside of the traditional social work route. And so for me, you know, it was a little bit nerve-wracking because I was like, okay, I don't really know if I want to go the therapy route anymore. So backing up a little bit, let me go back to the summer of 2021. The internship that I had to hold a caseload of a certain amount of you know, of people. The experience that I got was amazing because this was my very first time, for as long as I've been in the field, this was my very first time actually having a position where I was considered like a therapist. I was a student therapist. As I'm working as an intern over the summer going into the fall, I really kind of realized that like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I'm out. Like, I'm out. I can't do this no more. I can't. I learned very quickly that I did not want to do clinical social work. And I think, you know, that I also have the pandemonium to thank for that. And the reason why 2020 was really a year like where it kind of forced everybody to sit on their butts and reflect. What are you doing right now? What can you be doing? Like, do you actually love what you're doing? Y'all know this was also like the last 2 years have been the great resignation, where people have really been like leaving their jobs, going to start their own businesses, or really going after their passion. And then I also think what discouraged me a little bit was because it felt like nobody else around me, everybody else was doing the traditional LCSW route. Like, you're either working as a clinical social worker or, you know, some type of licensed professional where you're offering therapeutic service. Am I crazy? Like, am I the only one that just feels like this is just not for me anymore? And don't get me wrong, like, it wasn't the population I was working with. I loved my clients, y'all. Like, my clients didn't stress me out. The agency that I was working for, I was very blessed blessed and grateful because I was working for them and I had an internship with them just like it was for my very first job at the foster care agency. So I felt very supported from that perspective. I didn't feel overwhelmed. It wasn't a whole lot to the point where I was like, oh my God, I hate this job. I did feel burned out, but it wasn't burnout from this particular agency. And I've also worked as a case manager, you know, working with women of domestic violence. So when I tell y'all, I have worked in just about every area of social work. But I think for me, between becoming a case manager and then when I had my internship as a student therapist, because let's be honest, if you're a case manager, you also be feeling like a therapist. Like, that's just what it is. Half the time you trying to be there to make sure that you check in, doing your welfare checks and making sure that you're getting people into housing, yada yada. The whole time you end up genuinely having like therapeutic relationships with your clients because these people go through real life stuff. And so it's like you kind of become their only safe haven. It was really hard for me to be a case manager because a lot of times I was experiencing a lot of things that were just like, well, we can't even focus on making a case plan and building all these, you know, goals because, you know, come on, Maslow's hierarchy, your basic needs ain't met, okay? Between case management and also working as a student therapist, I felt burned out of doing this like therapeutic work where I am sitting in front of clients, talking for hours at a time, setting up case plans. Like, that just no longer made me feel passionate for my work. And that's when I really knew that, like, okay, it's time for me to pivot and do something different. And so, you know, I felt guilty, honestly, like, and I really wanted to be transparent in this video and talk to you guys because just because you have this come to Jesus moment and you like, okay, like I feel like I don't want to do therapeutic social work anymore, you start to feel guilty. Like the agency that I was working for, that was my original plan. Like when I worked for them, I'm like, okay, like when I graduate, I know that I can probably get on as a therapist. They'll probably support me in my journey to getting my clinical hours and I can probably even practice with them as a clinical social worker or like get a, you know, like a lower level license or just anything like that. So feeling like I was no longer dedicating myself to the therapeutic work that my degree trained me to be in, it made me feel guilty because I was like, dang, like, but this is what everybody is doing. So like, why do I feel like I don't want to do this anymore? This is what everybody is doing. Like, girl, what is wrong with you? Like, you go to school, you get your master's in social work and you work as a clinical social worker. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. Deep down in my heart, I genuinely was just like, I'm just not fulfilled no more. Like, I don't feel happy doing this therapeutic work. Like, you know, I felt burned out of just the idea of doing it. And so, you know, what I will say is that was a time where I really started leaning into, well, what are my other skills? And so I started doing research because I'm like, I know I got more skills than just therapeutic skills. I know I have the ability to talk to people. I know that I have the ability to make people feel comfortable. And I think that that was a blessing for me because, you know, the background that I come from, we went through struggles growing up. You know, my mom and like my family, like, we know what it's like to be on food stamps. We know what it's like to live in Section 8, yada, yada. So being a case manager was very easy for me because I felt like I could relate to my clients and my clients could relate to me. They trusted me. They told me things because it felt like, okay, Miss Brittany's been here before. So I feel like I had that privilege 100%, but it still just felt too easy. It felt too easy. I thank God for my husband because between him and just my close friend circle, they really kind of like supported me in the idea of, okay, so what are you really good at? He really noticed some of my skills that I had never even really noticed in myself, to be completely honest. You would be probably really good at project management, or you would probably be really good at Scrum. And so I would hear those things, but like, I never even considered the idea of leaving social work or like the traditional realm of social work because I'm like, no, like, this is what I've been trained to do. Like, once I started doing research and I started seeing, okay, like, this is what project management is, this is what program management is. And you know, I knew that first of all, I knew that I had other transferable skills. And so I think that it's really important that you know and understand your strengths outside of giving the traditional therapy where you're talking to people, whatever those skills might be. What other skills do you have? So for me, I was able to identify, okay, I know that I have leadership skills. I know that I'm organized. I know that I love presenting in front of people. So like, I had to really kind of dig and see, okay, like, what skills do you have? And if you had the opportunity to use them in another setting, could you do that? Or would you feel confident enough to do that? Number one. But number two, would you qualify for that, right? So as I'm looking at like different jobs like project manager or program manager, I'm like, what are the qualifications. And to be honest, they were very similar to the qualifications I felt like I already had. Once I really realized that there's so many other jobs out there that I could be doing. Remember I told you guys, I actually worked as a program associate for my second social work job ever when I worked in DC as a homelessness prevention program associate. I noticed that those were things that I really loved to do. I love the idea of building up a program, or writing, maybe assisting with writing grants, to being able to get certain things for a program. I knew that I loved to organize my notes and make things look good, putting things into spreadsheets and charts and being colorful. Anybody who knows me knows that that's my jam. I might not be interested in doing the therapeutic social work anymore, but I know that I can still be doing something where I'm still serving people and where I'm still helping people. And so where I am now, here we are. I graduated in May, and it's now 6 months later, right? I'm no longer in the traditional line of social work. So what I do now, I am a program manager at a startup company, and I work from home, 100% remote. Do y'all want to know the best part? The best part about my job is that I am still doing a form of social work, because what I do as a program manager, I basically offer support for people who are, specifically people who are underserved, who are either unemployed or underemployed. And so for me, it was this job was truly a blessing, because while I thought that I was pretty much balling up my MSSW degree and throwing it in the trash, I was like, girl, I got you. The job that I have now, it still makes me feel so fulfilled on both spectrums. So as a leader and a program manager, I'm able to do a lot of the back end things that I love to do. So I'm organizing, I'm managing people, and it feels really good, right? And then on the other side, as a social worker, I'm working with people who maybe they have been out of work for 5 years, maybe they've been out of work for 20 years. They have no idea where to start. They don't know how to do their resume. They don't know how to build up their LinkedIn. And that is what I do. I help coach people. I help give them and really teach them different job skills that they may feel like they don't have. And so for me, it's really a blessing, because now where I am, I feel like I have a 2-for-1. I'm serving people, which is genuinely what I've always loved to do. But then on the flip side, I'm also using my leadership skills. I'm using my organizational skills. I'm also working on a team of people on, different projects throughout the year. And now I feel like I'm at a place where this is good. This is good for me. A year ago, I was just I don't know what the heck I want to do, but I know what I don't want to do. Be firm in what it is that you know that you want and don't want when it comes to social work. I feel very good and I feel very content. And I actually would love to do a video about non-traditional social work positions that you can receive as a social worker. I really wanted to create this video to just give some encouragement, to let you really know that there are so many other things that you can do outside of the traditional social work route. And if you feel burned out, and if you feel like this is something that you don't want to do, first of all, it's okay. What I will say too is that you just have to make sure that you have a plan. Once you know and you genuinely feel okay, I don't want to do this anymore, you have to have a plan. I would not advise that you quit your job without a plan. You need to have a plan A, B, C, D. It's okay to let go a little bit. It's okay to let go a lot, actually. It might feel nerve-wracking a little bit, because everybody around you is going off to get their clinical license, right? Everybody around you is practicing as a therapist, or just doing something else that is more of the traditional social work route. Take it from somebody like me. I knew that I loved to serve people. It just no longer was in that therapeutic capacity. And so that's why I left the traditional realm of social work. So if you enjoyed it, if you got some gems from it, whether you're in social work or not, but I really truly would love to hear from my fellow social work people. Maybe you found yourself in the field at first and then you realized this ain't what I want to do. What was the job that you had that you no longer wanted to do, and what do you do now? Non-traditional social workers, what do you do now? Would you go back for your clinical license? As for me, right now, I don't have any plans on going back for my clinical license. I got my mind made up right now. Now, I don't know, 5 years from now, I might be like, you know what? Let me go on and tiptoe and get my license. I'm chilling. Honestly, I feel very good where I am. I'm making good money, more money than I've made in any of my past, social work positions before. And so let me just say, it's okay to be a little nervous. Take that jump, take that leap of faith, because you're not gonna know unless you actually get out there and try. I really enjoyed this topic. Actually, it was something very different. It felt very fresh. And so if you would like to see more, definitely comment down below. Let me know. If you have any questions, comment. Let me know in the comments down below. And I cannot wait to see you guys in my next video.